Hi everyone, and welcome to our how-to guide on our Principles of Communication framework, co-created by educational psychologists from Nottinghamshire's Educational Psychology Service. In this video, we're going to show you what's in this framework and how all settings can use it. So within this framework, we have some introductory information, such as why we've created it, and we explain the links to wider work, such as our Understanding Behaviour in Schools toolkit, which is also available on our EMED website, Nottinghamshire County Council's vision, and strength-based language. We then look at our 4 principles of communication: connect to communicate, power dynamics in language and communication, communication in context, and culture, community, identity, and belonging. Page 3 begins with some introductory information about why we have created this framework. The language we use shapes the constructions children and young people build of themselves. We celebrate where settings recognise, value, and support communication as being important for all members of the setting and local community. This framework strives to build on existing strengths in communication throughout our settings. And throughout this document, you will find hyperlinks to research literature, such as the one here by Berkow, 2018. And by clicking on it, it will take you straight to the original source. Next, we look at the close links between our framework and our wider work. Our communication framework builds on the thinking specific to communication in our Understanding Behaviour in Schools toolkit. And also by clicking on the graphic on this page, you will be able to access our Understanding Behaviour in Schools toolkit via our EMED website. Next, we look at the links to Nottinghamshire County Council's vision and how our communication framework fits alongside this. And also the links to strength-based language, which is a part of Nottinghamshire County Council's vision. Nottinghamshire County Council are committed to encourage and support all staff to use a strength-based approach to their work and to use strength-based language when communicating both verbally and in written form. This leads us on to the next page, which presents the 6 overarching strength-based language principles that we would like staff to embrace and adopt. Here we provide some information on who this framework is created for. So all school staff, setting and community organisations supporting young people. This page also visually presents the principles of communication as a quadrant. All principles are considered equally important. The remaining pages of this framework will look at each principle in more detail and follow an identical structure: why it is important, reflective questions to consider, useful prompts, a planning tool, and signposts to resources for each principle. So let's begin with Principle 1, Connect to Communicate, and why it is important. Every day, we and the young people we are working with are doing our best to communicate in the moment. As humans, we seek to connect with others, and this is key to promote effective communication and build meaningful relationships. The next 2 pages present some fundamental questions to consider. Firstly, for staff to think about their school or setting or community and themselves as a communicator. The next set of questions are for staff thinking in relation to the young person, and then also parents and carers. The next page presents some things we are likely to see when we connect to communicate well. The next page has an action planning sheet with 4 sections: whole setting / community, young people, parents and carers, and myself as a communicator. It has spaces for what do we do well, how could we be even better, and what can we do and who can action it. This planning sheet can be printed or used electronically to help with the action planning in relation to Principle 1. Principle 1 ends with some signposts to helpful resources for staff to access. Each signpost is hyperlinked, so by clicking on the resource you would like to view, it will take you straight to the original source. and each principle follows this identical structure. Next, we move on to Principle 2, Power Dynamics in Language and Communication. This is important because people communicate best when they feel confident and empowered. Trust, respect, and unconditional positive regard enable effective communication and sharing of views. There may be an imbalance of power in communication and interactions between teacher and student, and teacher and parent or carers. When people feel disempowered, this may trigger a threat response, and people's behavior can then become defensive, and they may appear aggressive or passive. Reactions may be less reasoned, and clarity of communication may be lost. Next, we are moving on to Principle 3, Communication in Context. Children communicate the best that they can in the context they are in. We learn to adapt our communication to fit the context we are in and the audience we are interacting with. This is a skill young people learn, and we all, including adults, adapt dynamically across contexts all the time. It is up to us to provide an environment in which young people can learn and practice these skills. For some young people, the communication skills being used at home and at school or their setting are very different. We need to be explicit about the different language contexts to help the young person adapt their language, particularly in thinking of preparing for adulthood and young people's opportunities. There is also a big difference between everyday functional language and the cognitive academic language demands of the curriculum. Young people require opportunities to build their confidence in using, practicing, and experiencing success in their use of these skills. Development of these skills can take time and require repeated learning opportunities. The final principle, Principle 4, is culture, community, identity, and belonging. Communication creates our sense of culture, our sense of community, and our social identity. Communities have a shared language that can create a sense of belonging. Through thoughtful communication, we can promote positive identities in young people. Our communication helps to shape how other people view themselves, their sense of value, and their sense of belonging. And the way we communicate reflects our identity, who we are, our heritage, and our experiences. So we've looked at our principles of communication, and now we finish off with some top tips on getting started with this work after accessing our framework. The next 2 pages present some ways to get started with this kind of work in your school or setting and thinking about next steps. And this is the end of our Principles of Communication framework and the end of this video. We hope this brief video was helpful in terms of getting to know what's in our framework, what it's all about, and how it can be used to support your work in your school or setting. And just a reminder that you can access the full Principles of Communication framework via our EMID website.